Heyo, welcome back to another video. In this one, what I wanted to talk about today was my 7 wants for Persona 6. There's no particular order to this, and perhaps it should have been named my 6 wants for Persona 6, but it happened to be 7, so this is what we're going with. So I also wanted to mention this. About a year ago, I think I ended up making my wants for Persona 6 during the Persona 25th anniversary, which I had thought for sure we're gonna get Persona 6 here, and we did not. However, that was before Persona 3 Reload came out, so I'm making this video as there are new people to the channel that probably didn't watch that video, and some of the things that I may have said have changed a bit, but certain things definitely have stayed the same. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. My first and foremost one, better difficulty scaling across all modes. My current issue with the Persona series is that it kind of gets to be too easy, especially on normal difficulty. When I play on normal, I'm looking for an all-rounded, balanced experience. It feels as though nowadays I have to sort of play on the hard mode for my first playthrough. I'm personally under the impression, especially being a Final Fantasy fan back in the day on the PS2, that instead of a difficulty, I just believe in proper scaling across playing through the game. Like, you get stuck on a boss, then you need to grind, etc. Currently, how it's set up right now is Persona 5 Royal and Persona 3 Reload currently just feel a little too easy, in my opinion anyway, with the normal difficulty. Proper scaling could go lengths in just teaching people the game better and how to, cheese it even, than just doing the same repetitive stuff to make it so easy for said player. Now, your first blind playthrough of any Persona game is going to be difficult. I get that. But me being a long-time Final Fantasy fan, it just is itching me that, I'm looking for something difficult, not so much an attack pattern that you have to specifically follow to defeat Elizabeth, but just something that has me on the edge of my seat trying to beat. Like, I had that satisfaction on the PS2. Not to say that in OG Persona 5 that I did not find it difficult, because certain things of that game I did. It's just Persona 5 Royal, when I went back and revisited it, became very apparently easy, especially with Showtime events. Theurgy is definitely a bit more balanced in Persona 3 Reload, but it's still pretty broken. So, I don't know, there just needs to be something added to the game. And this draws into my next numbered point, which is point number 2, that something mechanic-wise needs to be added to the game for the enemy to have the upper hand in a battle, rather than you just hitting the weakness critical and then basically getting an all-out attack and then instantly winning the fight. Now, I'm not asking this game to be an SMT game by no means, but it just feels like something's missing here to make this feel a bit less repetitive and a lot more satisfying to the player, especially a returning player like me that just wants something like on the edge that would make me feel a bit more satisfying killing like general enemies. Now, of course, the general grind is always going to be the grind, and of course I'm asking for something a bit more difficult to, I guess, go through the grind, but there just is something I feel like needs to kind of be put in place to make it so it's not just like such an easy victory, for instance. Now, point number 3 has nothing to do with combat, but it has a lot to do with story, mainly with social links, and honestly, I would really like it if all main character social links were really good in this one, because currently, as it stands, Persona 5 has to be probably one of the weird ones where the male characters are kind of really good, and then you have most of the female ones, besides really Kasumi, being really mid, and I don't know why. Like, in Persona 4, I felt like all-rounded, like a lot of the social links, especially the main character's social links, were really well, written out, really well done and expanded upon their difficulties and seeing their flaws and their true selves, and how can they get better, essentially, with dealing with what they're dealing with, etc. It just feels a lot more expanded upon their character arc than it does in Persona 5. Like, Persona 4 is definitely the, you could say, golden way to do social links within that game, but suffice to say, I won't say overall the social links for Persona 5 are bad. I just think that a lot of the main character ones weren't that great compared to the other social links you can do in the game, specifically the adult social links, or the other characters other than your party members. Because mainly it just doesn't feel like an expansion upon what they were struggling with. Everything seems to be confided to the dungeon, which I kind of like and kind of don't like at the same time. And if that is the case, why confine a social link, for instance, to 10 ranks? Why not just cut it down if you can't, fill it with, really good story building things for said character? Because then it just draws into a few links being kind of filler, and it's like, what was the point of this? Specifically, Makoto's best friend. There's a lot more to it, but you get what I mean. It's hard to defend certain things about Persona 5. And also Shiho and On, like, why was that barely elaborated on in On Social Link? Instead, we're doing a beauty competition. Granted, I still really like the characters and how they built on, the dungeons and everything within Persona 5, or the palaces. But it's just something's lacking within those social links, and I hope that Persona 6 really improves the main character's social links and really elaborates on their characters like they did in Persona 4 Golden. My fourth want for Persona 6 is better cutscenes, because for whatever reason, certain cutscenes in Persona 3 Reload are lacking. Now, I'm assuming that they're using the same studio that did the Persona 5 ones for Persona 6, but basically, the Persona 3 Reload ones weren't done by the same people, and it's very telling, especially the distant shots as well. I really did not like those. Now, of course, it's present in Persona 5, but Persona 5 just had more consistency and just making sharper animations. That's what really made me fall in love with Persona 5, is the sharp animation style that were used for the cutscenes. And little did I know I'd fall in love with the series and make videos for the game for 6 years now, maybe going on 7. It's actually pretty crazy, but regardless to say, Persona 6 should really have the same studio that did the Persona 5 animations, because those animations are really nice, and I'd really love to, have those same sharper cutscenes once again within Persona 6. I'm presuming that they had a third party do Persona 3 Reload's cutscenes, as currently, I'm gonna presume that the people that did the Persona 5 cutscenes are currently working on Meta 4's cutscenes and Persona 6's cutscenes. Too much of a workload can lead to, of course, like a bad thing, especially if you give them 3 games to work on. Luckily, it's only Meta 4 and Persona 6 potentially that they are working on currently for those cutscenes. Now, my fifth want for Persona 6 would be more interactive minigames in the overworld, like Persona 5 Royal. Now, those minigames that they added in Persona 5 Royal are really nice. It is so weird that there's a lack of inclusion of them in Persona 3 Reload. Now, granted, I'm sure that they are, doing a lot of things with Persona 6, especially those minigames, but, it just stinks that, there wasn't at least like a few different ones in Persona 3 Reload, as there's an arcade there. So it kind of stinks, but at the same time I kind of get it. Like, they just want to do a one-to-one remake, then add like cool little additions like that. They already added quite a bit to the story with the Mal social link things that they added. They're not quite social links, but you get what I'm saying. Either way, I would just like to see more baseball things happening, because that cut-in is cool when you get a home run. Or more stuff to do, like the place in Kichijoji. Like, that thing was probably the best area to be able to do everything and anything. But I would love to see more arcade games kind of involved, especially certain things like in the Yakuza series, like the Crane game, for instance. Like, there are a lot of things that they can elaborate on here, which I'd love to see in Persona 6. Like, oh my god, I'd love to see a Yakuza reference within one of those arcade games. And this will lead directly into my next wants for Persona 6, and that'd be number 6, more overworld exploration. Now, granted, most of the time when you're going through Persona 6, especially the story, you get put into these static, cutscene areas. Certain ones I'd love to be able to experience it and walk around in. And I get that there's only so many things that they could do, but it would just be nice to be able to explore these areas more. I know that they tried to do something similar within Persona 5 Strikers. However, with Persona 5 Strikers, when there is a clear barrier to somewhere that you should just be able to walk to, it is so infuriating to me, invigorating, that they put an invisible wall upstairs that is so close to the playable area that you can't walk up. And it's just so frustrating. Like, a gamer wants to be able to walk upstairs and not to deal with these invisible damn barriers. I digress. But basically what I'm trying to get at is I just want, you know, especially within Persona 5, if you remember those areas that you traveled to that were just kind of static areas, I'd like those to be more explorable than just being a static area, for instance. And my last want for Persona 6, which is, you know, number 7 here, and that is a better season pass setup. Because currently what we have in Persona 3 Reloaded is pretty mid. More BGMs, like a select few costumes that they added. It's just not enough to keep the player base to keep coming back to the game, for instance, or to want to purchase it right away until the main bulk of the DLC comes out in September. Like, they should add a decent amount of sufficient content for players to be able to return. Currently, Persona 3 Reloaded just doesn't have that. I like the model that they're going for, and especially this defeats the purpose of having potentially a royal version of another Persona game. Thankfully, hopefully, there probably will be one, mark my words, but it would just help in the long run to, you know, keep the game alive if that's what they're aiming for with these season passes. Because currently what they did with Persona 3 Reloaded, they did not deliver on that at all. So with that all being said, those are my 7 wants for Persona 6, and I'm sorry that it's an oddball number and it's 7 particularly. Usually I don't have as many things to really go over here, and maybe I might do the same thing with Kingdom Hearts 4 once that's announced, which I don't know, I might wait until we have more of a clearer release date for that game, because it's probably gonna be like another year or so before Kingdom Hearts 4 comes out, or who knows, maybe it might be sooner, maybe January. That'd be great for Kingdom Hearts 4, but mainly I'm hyped for Persona 6. It's looking like it's gonna be announced in 2 weeks at the Summer's Game Fest, because Atlas seems to be a partner there, so I'm really excited to see what happens, and especially if we get more Metaphor news. I should probably talk about Metaphor, which, sorry, I haven't. I've been just, like, busy with, like, other things. Definitely not Final Fantasy XIV, guys. With that being said, though, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.